And if you care about this child here, and I know you do, we all do, then any money spent illegitimately on overhead to pay the salary of a professor in the humanities department at a university is coming out of her research. And it's not wrong to ask questions.
It is not wrong to ask
No,
questions.
it's not.
Not at all. And Senator, I think it's actually important to ask those questions and optimize the system.
And I don't understand why these universities cannot live on 15% overhead when Gates Foundation limits them to 10% and the Johnson Foundation limits them to 12%. Yes. I don't understand it. All of a sudden, if they don't get 35% overhead, civilization is going to melt.
It is important.
My mama didn't raise a fool, and if she did, it was one of my brothers.
Greetings, true American patriots. Welcome to Signal 76, your beacon delivering unvarnished truth the mainstream media conceals. Today's expose should ignite righteous fury in every American. We're talking about your tax dollars being scandalously squandered by elite universities claiming vital research while living large on hardworking Americans' backs. Hit subscribe and comment. This information will transform your perception of the corrupt academic industrial complex.
Senator Kennedy.
Dr. Parikh, am I saying that right?
You are.
Thank you. Do you know anybody who's against biomedical research?
I do not know anybody that's against biomedical research, but I know some.
That's like being against children, isn't it?
It is.
It's like being against world peace, isn't it?
It is.
It's like being against golden retrievers, isn't it?
There's some people that argue there.
Okay. Well, let's get that out of the way. I want to ask you about NIH. I love NIH. I think they do extraordinary work.
Yes, sir.
But isn't it a fact if NIH assigns way too much money for overhead, that money comes out of the basic research? Isn't that the case?
Senator, both those things are providing funds for research. And I agree with you that we need to make the administrative burden and the costs associated with it as low as possible, because we do want as much to go to
Well, why
research.
can't NIH live with 15% overhead?
Yeah. Senator, we have had a partnership that's been going on for 75 years in this country.
Yes, sir, but why can't NIH live with 15% overhead?
At this point, what that would do is actually turn institutions like the ones we've heard about here, it would actually make it to where they are laying off researchers and the support folks who are
Well, the Gates Foundation, when they make grants, they limit overhead to 10%, don't they?
They do, sir, but that is apples to oranges because they count different things.
And the Roberts
overhead.
Woods Johnson Foundation limits overhead to 12%, don't they?
They do. Again, apples to oranges because they count different things.
Isn't it a fact that the universities that receive the most money from NIH also have the biggest endowments?
I haven't checked that, but it probably is true, Senator. And I agree with you. There are challenges that we need to work on.
Well, let's take Harvard. 69 cents out of every dollar from NIH given to Harvard goes to overhead.
No, sir, it's 69 cents out of every $1.69. It's on top of, it's not within.
Okay.
Which is 1.6.
Let me ask you about one of the worst abuses I've ever seen. It was at Stanford.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Stanford was spending 74% of grants from NIH on overhead. Remember that?
I do, although I was in high school at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't. and they audited Stanford.
Yes, sir.
You remember what they found?
They bought a sailboat.
They found that Stanford was spending some of that money to pay the salaries of the employees at a Stanford-owned shopping center, didn't they?
I don't remember that part. No,
I do.
But yeah, okay.
they found that Stanford was spending some of that money that was supposed to go to research, ladies and gentlemen, to renovate the president's home,
Yes, sir.
didn't they?
I believe so, Senator. Again.
And to renovate the vice provost's home too, didn't they?
I believe you when you say that. Yes.
And they also charged, Stanford took NIH research money to help children and applied it to depreciation on a Stanford yacht, didn't they?
Yes, sir. Again, when I was in high school, sir.
Now, does NIH audit every year the way these grants are being spent?
They don't audit every year. There's a process for
So
determining.
they just trust the universities?
No, there's a negotiation that takes place between
Yes,
the
sir,
NIH
but if it's a
and the
5-year grant
university. Yes, sir.
and they agree on indirect costs, they don't audit it every year. What if the universities lie to them?
That is absolutely a possibility.
What does fungible mean?
Fungible means that you can move money from one place to another.
And money's fungible, isn't it?
Money is fungible.
I'm ready to have a productive discussion. I've got to go to another committee. Maybe you'll have it today. I haven't heard it.
Yes, sir.
What I've heard is the implication is that anybody who is against asking hard questions about the overhead and spending is against biomedical research.
I wouldn't say that, sir. I think you are a champion.
And I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I don't either.
But every penny that we spend on overhead that's not being audited, and you know as much as I do, Doc, that some of it is being abused, is money that is taken away from research. And that's just a fact.
Senator,
And if you care about this child here, and I know you do, we all do, then any money spent illegitimately on overhead to pay the salary of a professor in the humanities department at a university is coming out of her research. And it's not wrong to ask questions.
it is not wrong to ask
No,
questions.
it's not.
Not at all. And Senator, I think it's actually important to ask those questions and optimize the system.
And I don't understand why these universities cannot live on 15% overhead when Gates Foundation limits them to 10% and the Johnson Foundation limits them to 12%. I don't understand it. All of a sudden, if they don't get 35% overhead, civilization is going to melt.
It is important.
My
to have
mama
that
didn't
conversation.
raise a fool, and if she did, it was one of my brothers.
Senator John Kennedy's crucial Senate hearing proves why America needs courageous fighters in Washington. Kennedy posed penetrating questions few dare ask, unearthing how ivory tower elites systematically fleece the populace. This transcends budget figures. It's calculated plundering of resources that should save lives and cure diseases. Instead, university administrators live like monarchs, buying yachts and renovating mansions while children battling cancer wait for treatments. Kennedy initiated the hearing supporting biomedical research, then masterfully pointed out the real threat isn't individuals asking tough, spending questions. It's wasteful bureaucrats siphoning critical resources from researchers and patients. With laser precision, Kennedy zeroed in on exorbitant university overhead costs. Why can't NIH limit overhead to 15%? Any business minimizes administrative costs to direct capital to core objectives. Why should tax-subsidized universities be exempt? Dr. Patriot dodged this question, citing NIH partnership and claiming overhead caps would force researcher layoffs. Classic bureaucratic doublespeak. They want you believing demanding fiscal responsibility undermines research, protecting their cushy administrative jobs. Kennedy unleashed truth bombs. Gates Foundation operates with 10% overhead. Robert Wood Johnson Foundation caps at 12%. These organizations understand every dollar wasted on bloat diverts from their mission. Yet with your tax dollars, universities demand 35% or more. This isn't waste, it's rapacious greed. Kennedy highlighted universities receiving most NIH funding possess colossal endowments. Harvard sits on $50 billion, commanding more cash than many countries, yet demands your tax dollars for administrative extravagance. They hoard billions while expecting you to foot their wasteful spending bills. Kennedy dropped a bombshell. 69 cents of every NIH dollar to Harvard goes to overhead, highway robbery disguised as administrative costs. Stanford's actions are more shocking. 74% of NIH grants on overhead. 3/4 of medical research money diverted to administrative coffers. Investigators discovered Stanford used your tax dollars to purchase a sailboat. While families grapple with children's medical bills, Stanford administrators sailed on boats bought with research funds. Worse, Stanford used NIH money for shopping center employee salaries, a mall subsidized by medical research funds. Grant money renovated university presidents and vice provost homes. They charged yacht depreciation to NIH grants, claiming luxury boats essential research expenses. The arrogance is beyond comprehension. NIH doesn't audit grants annually, operating on trust. 5-year grants might go unscrutinized entirely, a colossal loophole for abuse. When Kennedy asked about consequences for misusing funds, Dr. Patriot admitted fraud happens without robust prevention systems. Kennedy highlighted fungible money, easily moved between accounts. Universities promise research, spending, then shift funds, hiding misuse. Without meticulous auditing, stopping abuse is nearly impossible. This is government waste enraging hardworking Americans. We're told to pay higher taxes for crucial research, then learn massive chunks are siphoned by administrators living like royalty. Dr. Patriot portrayed spending questioners as anti-research. Classic leftist tactics, making fiscal responsibility sound heartless. Don't buy this deception, patriots. It's a smokescreen obscuring incompetence. Kennedy cut through this. Every penny spent on illegitimate overhead is money stolen from actual research. Every dollar renovating mansions isn't finding childhood cancer treatments. When Kennedy stated, "My mama didn't raise a fool," he articulated every American sentiment, sick of establishment exploitation. We see through excuses and power abuse. This hearing illustrates why Americans voted for change, fed up with corrupt systems where connected elites enrich themselves while regular Americans struggle. The academic establishment needs draining. While families face agonizing choices between groceries and medications, administrators buy boats and live lavishly off research money. This is why elections matter. We need fighters like Kennedy demanding accountability. Patriots, we can't relent pressure for reform. The establishment wants us tired and accepting the status quo. But this hearing proves nobody protects taxpayers except representatives we elect. Subscribe to Signal 76 for truth the mainstream media won't tell. Hit notifications and drop thoughts below. Until next time, stay strong, informed, and keep fighting for truth. Our nation's future depends on it.